Hey, left, right out. Interesting thing. So today the CPI data for this last month, November came out. 6.8% year over year. I think it's the highest in whatever since 40 years. But here's the thing, like I've always said, that data, the way they collect the data, how they calculate it has changed. So it's not exactly apples to apples comparison. So it's probably much worse actually, because they tend to pad that data to suppress the number so it looks better, and then allowing them to print more and more. But here's the thing you got to look about that. So it's fair to say that it's much worse than it was even in the 70s, based off of that CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which I won't call it inflation. It's price or price inflation, if anything, but it's just rising prices. So here you are, the worst ever, or way worse than the 70s, if you ask me, if you look at the actual calculations. What did we do in the 70s? Paul Volcker came in, and I think he raised interest rates like the 18% to break the back of that inflationary spiral. Do you see Powell doing that anytime soon? Shoot, they can't even stop tape. They can't even stop printing, extra money to backstop the bond and mortgage market. So and they're just talking about doing maybe 15 billion a month, or maybe 30 billion. They're thinking they'll double that, for December. They're not even talking about rates. Who's talking about raising rates? Nobody. So, they should have done it a long time ago. Now, if it took 17% to break that, the back of the CPI back then, imagine what they'd have to do now. Would you ever see them raise up to 20%? No way. It would crush everything. We've gone so far down this road economically that if you did try to really hem in inflation, you would cause a massive panic, a massive correction in the market. All the dislocations within a relative short period of time would start correcting. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. The further along down the line, I've said this for years, the better it is to do it now, because the further along down the line, the more hurt and pain and suffering is going to come of it. But we're at the point now where it's inevitable to we're going to have massive amounts of pain and suffering once we actually do the right thing. But it's for the greater overall system if we just get it over with and then rebuild and have real markets. But I don't see him doing that. So I see him trying to kick down the line. So how do you do it? You can't fight inflation and also maintain this loose monetary policy unless the private sector can outproduce the amount of money expansion, which is not happening. We've got so much things going on, and all that does is you'll have downward pricing pressure from the extra supply, but then it's also because you're printing money, you're taking away possible lower prices, or I guess deflation in the prices, the benefit for the consumer. So there's a lot of craziness. But I just don't see them. So I wanted to bring that up. You don't see them talking about that, and if they do, there's maybe you get a quarter point here and there. That's not doing anything. We're talking about numbers that, said, we take the equivalent number and put it in the 70s, which they pad that number, so it's way worse than what you had back then, and how Paul Volcker had to deal with that, and the amount of interest rate hikes. To go all the way up to 17-18%. It's not happening. If it happens, we need it to something like that to happen, but I just cannot fathom that happening. Because imagine not only that, imagine what it would do to the government, the fiscal side of things, running this kind of deficits, $30 trillion in debt, rolling that over. Try rolling that over into that paper into that kind of a market when you have that kind of interest rate. That's part of the reason why the interest rates are suppressed right now, is because inadvertently, even though the Fed's supposed to be independent arbiter and all this stuff, they're working to keep the governments going, because once you get up to even 5% interest rate, look at how much of the government's own payment on the debt it goes to that. Granted, some of it goes, it gets paid a lot of it to the Treasury, gets paid to these other entities that have to use the dollars. But even the ones that go to the Fed, they pay the excess back to the Treasury, but they do pay a dividend to their holders, which is, people speculate is roughly 6%. So either way, it's a losing proposition when you can't cover those insurance payments. But that's the big thing today. And for some reason, the market's going up on this stuff. Like I said, this is irrational actions, and the bond market is barely, like last time I checked, it could be different, barely moving relative to what it has, the astronomical moves it has in the past. I have no idea why it would do this or what people are thinking, because if anything, conventional wisdom, you would think that this would be the sign that there's going to be interest rate hikes, that there's going to be tightening monetary policy. So you would think that you would have a little bit of a spike or a little bit of pressure on interest. You think you have a little pressure on the markets because, you have to look at what your cost of capital or what kind of return you're going to get relative to a risk-free rate. And that becomes a little bit tighter as you're looking into the returns of the market. It's craziness, man. But it is what it is. And volatility, is down, which you'd think that would go up because you're looking at it seems the volatility should go up whether you're going up or down, but it doesn't. It's usually a fear index whether the market's going down at this point. So anyway, you'd think that would go up, but it's not. Maybe this is a lag between that, but we'll see. We've got to see what the Fed is actually going to do about this, and if he's just going to hang out all the the poor people to dry with rising cost of living, bifurcate society into two classes, or is he actually going to fight a little bit and try to at least save us? Look at what you think about this. I'm into it. You have money in the bank, all right? Let's say you got 10 grand in there. You're losing 6% or 6.8% year over year by their numbers, right? The purchasing power. It's absolutely insanity, and it's robbery to the greatest extent, and it should be illegal. Anyway, I will talk to you later. Peace out.